All right, let's bring her in. You know her as a multi-time guest on this show. She is a pop culture enthusiast. She's a documentarian enthusiast, and she is the host of the Reality Life podcast. It is Kate Casey. Kate, thanks for coming on. Finally, we get to speak on video. How about this?
I know. We're moving into the new world, aren't we?
I know. I finally joined the rest of content creators in the world of video after, 8 years of just doing strict audio.
Well, you were like a Skype person for a long time.
Yeah, but I only did the Skype audio. I never did Skype. This is the first time I think we've ever videoed each other.
Maybe.
Yeah. So nice to meet you finally.
You
video.
too.
How about that? All right, let's get started here. I want to start with Bravo, which is right up your alley.
Right.
And I want to start with, do you know anything in regards to, are we getting a season 12 of Vanderpump Rules? Has it not been decided yet? Or
I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't think they're anywhere close to making a decision. I think that they wanted to take a break for a long time just to kind of clear people's palates. But truthfully, I don't know if there's enough there for a show that would make it worthwhile. People really tuned into that show because I think it reminded them of that period of time where you didn't have a lot of life decisions. You could do whatever you want. You could cheat on somebody. It didn't matter. But now they're married. They have children, and it kind of lands differently. So I don't think it's going to be the version that we all remember it as. And honestly, I think someone like Ariana is probably like, I don't want to go back in time onto that show. And I've done Dancing with the Stars. I've hosted Love Island. Like, those days are over.
Been on Broadway. Don't forget that. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that she's done.
Yeah.
And here's something that's interesting, because we had this, 2-3 weeks ago, we had this story of Sandoval filing a lawsuit against Ariana for distributing the video that she found on his phone, or thinking that she did, and all this stuff. It really does seem like, let's just say there is a season 12. And even before the season, they say, hey, this is it. This is definitely going to be our last one. And they announce it before the season, whatever the case may be. After this latest lawsuit from Sandoval against Ariana, I can't see any way, if there is a season 12, that both of them come back. It has to come back with one or the other. And if one doesn't, and let's face it, like you just said, Ariana doesn't need the show. The show needs the show. The show needs her way more than she needs the show. And we all know Sandoval needs the show way more than the show needs him. So it would seem to me, if there is a season 12, we'd be looking at Sandoval full-time cast member and Ariana with just an appearance here or there, because you can't do a full season with no Ariana. I got to believe she'll show up, but as she said at the end of season 10, I don't want to be around you. I don't want to be anywhere near you. And with a lawsuit in the off season, I can't imagine, if there is a 12, that she wants any part of him anyway. So,
well, remember, like the show's sort of done before the whole affair. I mean, it wasn't that interesting after a while. Yeah. I just don't think it's very interesting now. I think it had its last legs. It's kind of, let's move on. And also, I think people are so excited about the Valley.
Yeah.
I like, in the end, it's the same with Housewives. It's probably the same with Bachelor. You get sick of seeing the same people all the time. You know their life, you know their story, you know the way they think. You want to move on to different people, different stories, different experiences. I think that people like the Valley because it's a whole new set of people who kind of remind them of the earlier versions of the Arianas and the Toms and such.
Speaking of the Valley, was the next thing I wanted to talk about with you, is that season 1 got, I don't want to say rave reviews, but it was like a breath of fresh air, because like you said, people were kind of getting tired of Vanderpump Rules kind of being the same thing. And this is people that we've heard of and we've seen before, obviously Jax and Brittany being the biggest couple we've heard of. You had probably heard of some of those other people that are on the cast. I really hadn't, because I hadn't paid attention, but they were around that circle of people. So had a very good season 1. They know they've already started filming season 2. We're probably not going to get it, I'm guessing, until March or something of 2025. Either way, there's a lot that has happened on that show. We just recently found out that Jax has checked himself into a mental health facility, or he's in rehab or something like that. And your thoughts early on, are you hearing anything about season 2 of The Valley?
I think they started filming.
Yeah.
I think it will be a gigantic hit for not gigantic. It's not going to be like Vanderpump numbers, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to do a lot better than most of the franchises that the Housewife franchises, because it really kind of hits all the points that a bigger audience want. They like the romance, they like the element of friendship, they like people drinking too much, making bad life decisions. And it's also a time period that's not really told on Bravo. I mean, we typically see housewives who are raising teenagers, if not kids, that are out of high school. And this is a group of friends who are beginning a totally different life trajectory. You know, that period of time where you're newly married, people are starting to, in your friend group, are starting to have children. And I think that's a special time in people's life that they look back on. Now you have the added element of they're sort of tangential to the horrible Vanderpump Rules people. So you have hope that they're going to make the terrible decisions that make it worth watching. So I think the people that were on Vanderpump Rules are probably desperate to get onto that show. But I think that they did a great job of kind of creating their own thing. And I would assume, and I suspect, and I've heard that they want no part of the people that were on Vanderpump Rules.
And then you've got the whole aspect of, hey, season 1 of The Valley, we're going to introduce you to 4 couples. They're all married. 3 of them have kids. The 4th one was pregnant, and they have since had their child. But then season 1 airs, and 2 of the 4 couples end up getting divorced. Well, one definitely got divorced, Michelle and what's his
Jesse.
Jesse. They're divorced, and they're already dating new people.
Yeah.
Jax and Brittany, we know, have been separated, and there's a lot of rumors of what's going on with them. Any update? Do you know anything in regards to Jax and Brittany? My guess is season 2 is going to focus on their separation and how they're handling co-parenting.
Oh, without question. And she's apparently, or they're trying to float it that she's dating Tanner, which I don't believe. I think he's desperate to get a little bit of attention, and she's probably desperate to make Jax jealous. I don't think Jax cares. I think he's dating someone else. I think that Jax is very clever. He knows how to make good TV and good storylines. So I don't really know what he's doing, but it's hard for me to kind of take anything that he does with anything other than a grain of salt.
Yeah. And we saw the story come out. Tanner and Brittany have been, quote unquote, spending time together. But if you looked on, like when the story came out, it made it seem like we have an exclusive, when if you went on either Tanner or Brittany's Instagram stories the weekend that happened, which was them, a group of them hanging out at Jax's bar, it's like, but this is already known if you follow them on Instagram. So this floating out there of they've been spending more time together, I just don't see it. I know that Tanner moved from Pittsburgh to LA to get into, I don't want to say necessarily get into TV, but he wants to be part of that scene. This could easily be a way of him just getting on another reality show and at least show that maybe he goes out on a date with Brittany in season 2, but it doesn't work out. I don't see them as a couple long-term whatsoever, but maybe they went out on a date, and, you know, we'll see when season 2 rolls around, but I don't put much stock into they're a couple. He's
probably just trying to get on the TV show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
if you're a guy in your 30s, you're like, okay, where could I be? I can't be on The Bachelor. I'm too old.
Yeah.
Where else can I go? Oh, maybe I can get on The Valley.
Yeah, and like I said, he literally just moved to LA end of May, beginning of June. So
there you go.
He clearly wants to, and he's doing a lot of fitness stuff online, and I think personal training, but he's, releasing videos and stuff like that of, sign up for my class and stuff like that. So he clearly wants to, he can improve his viewership or people signing up for him if they see him on The Valley. So yeah, it makes sense why he would hang out with all those people and post about it, So are you watching Big Brother?
A little bit. I have to say it's been kind of slow.
Okay. I agree with you. Until literally the last 3 days. It has been so chaotic in the house since Sunday's HOH. Now, we're recording this on Tuesday, so when people see this, they'll see it on Thursday, meaning we'll know who won Power of Veto, what happened. But it is an absolute shit show now of what has happened in the last 48 to 72 hours, because people are at each other's throats. There's people that we thought liked each other. All these alliances. I couldn't tell you what alliance is still an alliance.
Yeah.
They're at each other's throats. It gets good this week, depending on how much of the live feeds is shown on CBS, because we know there's basically two different shows. It's
Right.
what's happening on the live feeds and what CBS chooses to show us in the 3 hours a week that they broadcast Wednesday,
So
Friday,
crazy
Thursday, and
too.
Sunday.
Those that leave the show have to learn about all the things that have happened in U.S. politics. It's just
isn't that weird? Like we all know that when people go on reality shows, you're void of anything related to a computer or what's going on in the outside world. But it is usually on The Bachelor, it's like, okay, you last a couple rose ceremonies, you didn't have your phone for 2 weeks. Same thing with Big Brother. Matt and Lisa, the first two who were eliminated, they didn't have their phone for 2-3 weeks. But if you make it to the end of Big Brother, you literally have no idea what's going on in the outside world for 3 months.
Do you watch Southern Charm at all?
No.
Okay, so Southern Charm, there was a cast member, Summer House. Do you watch Summer House?
No. I get those two mixed up because I feel like they're the same thing.
Well, that's pretty.
Are they both on the same network?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a lot of crossover because Paige on Summer House dates Craig, who's on Southern Charm. Okay. But there was a cast member for a long time named Andrea, model, Italian, super gorgeous. And he was on Big Brother Italy, I think, a European version of it.
Oh, okay.
And he was there during COVID. So he said he got let go. And usually, like Big Brother US, you go and you meet with the Julie Chen of the show. Yeah. And instead, they just sort of, he met somebody with like almost like a hazmat suit on. This was like the beginning of the COVID. Let him kind of out to a car, and then he gets on the road, and there's literally no one on the road. So we think it's bonkers now with the U.S. election, but like COVID, that's insane.
Yeah, no, it is kind of weird to think back to those times, especially the early times when COVID hits in like March of 2020, because we had Big Brother airing that summer. And remember, they just had no live audience on the Thursday show. Yeah. And when the people got eliminated, they couldn't even hug or give Julie a handshake. Julie sat a little farther apart from them. And it was just, it was weird. There was still a season. And once they all cleared protocol and they're in that house and they don't interact with anybody else, it was almost like the perfect show for COVID, because once you were cleared and you did 2 weeks of, what's the word I'm looking for? 2 weeks of not prep.
You're like sequestered.
Yeah, 2 weeks of sequestering, and you don't test positive every day for 2 weeks. It's like, okay, so all of you are all clean, and you're literally only going to spend time with each other for however long this summer lasts. It's literally was the perfect summer COVID show. And I don't even remember what happened. What summer? That was 2020. I can't remember what season that was in terms of numbered season. But anyway, Big Brother is about to get wild. So I would tune in to last night's episode, which would be Wednesday, and then tonight's, because it's basically we have our first big move of the game is what's going to happen. I think people know by now. If you're listening to this, you obviously watched Wednesday night's episode. We know that the head of household this week was Cedric, and on Sunday night he nominated Kenny, he nominated Angela, and then he nominated Tucker, put himself up for the second week in a row, and then that caused a lot of craziness. Power of Veto was played. Do you want to know who won, since we're recording this on Tuesday?
Just tell me, yes.
Yeah. Tucker won Power of Veto yet again, second week in a row. But the plan of, okay, what do you figure? Like, oh, I'm Tucker, taking myself off the block, so Cedric has to put someone else up. He doesn't take himself off the block. And it becomes this giant discussion of, wait, I told you to play the veto for yourself. And Tucker's like, no, you didn't. So be curious to see if they show that fight between Cedric and Tucker. And what's going to happen is Tucker played the veto for Angela, of all people, who's the most hated woman on this show.
Yeah.
And then Cedric was supposed to put up Quinn because he has the biggest advantage in the house, and he doesn't. He puts up Mackenzie, who has the other upgrade, and Mackenzie uses it for America's veto. So now tonight, we're not even going to know until going into tonight who the third person is that's up for nominations, because America is voting on the third person. So, but Tucker got mad at Cedric. He's like, you hung me out to dry. You totally blindsided me. He's like, what are you talking about? I told you to play the veto for yourself, and you played it for Angela. He's like, yeah, I played it for Angela because you told me you were putting Quinn up. He said, no, I didn't. So they just basically go back and forth of who was right and who was wrong in that conversation. I think Cedric was right. I think there's footage of Cedric telling Tucker, play the veto for yourself. We don't have the numbers, but but Tucker says, you never told me that. So that's where we are with those two. Should be interesting, though, to say the least. I wanted to now move on to your specialty, the Housewives franchise, the one that I never watch, but I always ask you about.
No, you always, but you never watch it, which is so funny.
I can never get caught up just because I feel like I'm so far behind. And but here's so I'm going to give you the bare bones of what I know because I read headlines about Housewives shows, but I don't know anything. So explain to me and to the audience who might not watch, but probably sees headlines as well. I hear that number one, for whatever reason, the Real Housewives of New Jersey just decided not to have a reunion show. Right. And number two, they're rebooting the whole franchise. So everybody, when they come back with the next season of Real Housewives of New Jersey, none of the cast that was on this past season is coming back.
We don't know that. We don't know. It's kind of being floated. Essentially, you have a season where, imagine this. 2 of the most well-paid cast members of that show are actually related. So it's a sister, Joe Gorga's sister, Teresa, and her sister-in-law, Melissa Gorga, who you think is beautiful, who Teresa despises. Teresa is now married to a man named Louis. The 2 sister-in-laws despise one another, and they refused to film together. So you have people being paid way too much money, and then they refuse to film together, which is absurd. So the whole season, which is a shortened season, is really difficult to watch because the 2 people who hate each other refuse to film together, but they suck all of the air out of the room, and it disallows anybody else to be kind of highlighted in their personal story or their relationships. So it's just kind of like a weak sauce kind of season. So what happened was at the end of the season, there was this dinner party where they tried to get the women together so there would be some sort of communication. But instead, 2 of the lesser highlighted cast members nonetheless, but like no one cares about them as much. The 2 youngest ones, two of the youngest ones, they get into this big fight and it became one of those shouting matches and then someone throws a drink at a restaurant. It's not like the table flipping episode, but kind of bad. It sort of just, again, illuminated the fact that this is such a dark show. No one really gets along. They all use anything on one another as currency to like sabotage somebody. So they couldn't do a reunion because there are certain people who refuse to speak to each other. And then there's been this whole thing off season where 2 of the loudest cast members who are pretty negative, they have apparently been working in conjunction with certain social media troll accounts so that when they would film the show, the social media accounts would get information from those cast members, and the social media accounts would then post things on the day that they were filming so it could come up on the show. For example, did you read the social media story about how this guy does XYZ with his sex life? They would have an account posted on the day that they filmed so then the cast members could go, oh my God, can you believe what's blowing up on social media? But it was all working in conjunction to sabotage people to make things storyline. So that coupled with one of the cast members was found out for sending screeners of the show to different troll accounts. It kind of like made the entire show so dark and toxic, like literally no one gets along. So
wait, screeners of the show as it was filming, not episodes.
No, later, episodes before.
Oh, episodes before they aired. Okay. I thought you were talking about while the show was filming.
Oh, no.
Somebody in the filming to editing department was sending stuff out. Okay.
No. So basically, none of the cast members want to work together. And so I think what they're going to probably do is put maybe 2 of the main cast members on a pause and then just wait to film until early next year. Probably just as a calm the masses down, but also as like a warning sign to these cast members, like, this isn't a fun show to make when you're all unrelenting in your hate for one another.
What was the reasoning behind no reunion show?
Because it was this epic argument at a table where people were screaming and yelling and throwing glasses, and they just thought 2 of the people won't even speak to each other. And there's also kind of this thing where most reunions with housewives, there's like a little moment of clarity or, I'm really sorry I blew it. Because in order for you to continue to be a housewife, you kind of have to move through a problem. You have to go, okay, I get it. I move on. Yeah. If you are stuck in an issue and you can't get past it, it doesn't allow stories to move. They don't want to use you anymore. Well, they're all like that. And there's like no happy, fun slapstick moments. It's all like, your husband cheats. You're a loser. You went to jail. You did this. So it's like the most depressing show to watch. So they didn't do a reunion because it's so dark. what they did was they had them go back to the restaurant where that last dinner party fail went, put them into different rooms, and then had the producer walk in through the room and had them rewatch moments from that epic dinner disaster. So it's pretty boring.
You mentioned Louis,
Yes.
Teresa's husband.
Yes.
We already know that. I think the last husband she had before the one that got deported to Italy, or after the one that got deported to Italy, Joe. Wait, no, that's Melissa's
That's Joe.
husband.
Yeah.
What's
No,
Teresa's?
Teresa's ex-husband, Joe
as well. Okay.
Yeah.
She got married after him to somebody else, not Louis, right? Or
No.
Louis is the first guy after.
Louis
Joe.
the first guy after.
Okay, what is his deal? I thought I hear something that he's shady, nobody likes him, or he's just not.
He comes across as like a Tinder swindler. He's like love bombing her. He seems to like the camera a lot. He has said some things that are pretty weird and aggressive on the show. One of the cast members says that her son received a phone call from him threatening him. Meanwhile, the son's not on the show. No one even knows what the son looks like because he's a private person. So he doesn't really seem to respect boundaries. And people feel like she's a different version of herself with him. And the love bombing is so over the top. And then there are all these other social media videos that get out. Now, he has been in fights with many exes, and 2 in particular are out for this guy. So they probably on their own have released these videos, which are pretty humiliating. And well, I would think so. Like Louis went to some weird, like prayer warrior dude conference where they required them to make videos to the lady that they screwed over while they're all standing behind him like a cult. And Louis professing his love. I'm going to do better. I'm going to come back and I'm going to change things. You're going to see it's going to be better, with all these men behind him. He kind of just makes the hair on the back of your neck. You're like, oh my God, what? And you feel kind of bad for her in some ways because she went to prison. She gets out. She's clearly rattled. It was like a moment where you thought she might repair her relationship with her brother and his wife. But then comes this guy who just seems like Tinder swindler, and he knows all the right things to say to her. And so there's never hope for her ever reclaiming a relationship with her brother. They despise one another. How'd she meet
him?
I think like in front of the mailbox, like he just happened to walk by, and I'm not exaggerating.
So he lives near her?
I think he wanted to date her. I think he was like watching the show.
So he hung out next to her.
People say that he was also interested with another housewife in Miami before that. So I don't know. These shows are not any different. It's like somebody on The Bachelor who found out a girl, remember when there was a story about Peter and Kelly, but I actually think that's true. But, somebody meets a bachelor beforehand and then they end up on the show. It's like, you can tell people that are kind of like, oh, is this like, you're not. It doesn't seem like he's there for the right reasons, if you will.
It's almost like the Tanner and Brittany thing. If we see Tanner on season 2 of The Valley, it's because we know.
But imagine Tanner bonkers, screaming and yelling, and people suggesting that he's got like information. Oh, at one point, the guy apparently he said he was best friends with Bo Dietl, who's an investigative reporter. And at one point, he bragged like, "I've got information on all of you." There were rumors that he was trying to sabotage someone else's business deal. There are enough things that are said and written about him where you just go, wait, what? What is going on?
And since this last season of Housewives of New Jersey wrapped, didn't Teresa film? Is she on Trader season 3, or I'm mixing her up with another show?
No. She wasn't asked, I don't think.
What season? She did a reality show recently.
She did the lower level one, which is called House of Villains.
Oh, she did. Okay, that's what I'm mixing her up with. Yeah. Okay, so she did House of Villains. That I think is coming out soon or this summer or something like that. But so Melissa and Teresa, there's just no way.
No relationship. No. I don't think the cousins even speak to each other. It's pretty sad. But it's like a never-ending fight.
Does Teresa speak to her brother? No. Wow.
And her parents have passed away, so that's really her only relative. But
it's that bad, huh?
That bad, really bad, yeah.
I mean, you hate to see it, but yet, how many times have we seen this within a Housewives franchise that marriages are ruined, friendships completely ruined? Like, I understand that you have to put on an entertaining show, but what's more important, like real loving friendships and or relationships,
Yeah,
or
but these aren't real.
making
But
good television?
these are not people that we know. These are people who want to be on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A different thing.
Yeah. Still all fascinating to me. I
Yeah,
do watch,
endlessly fascinating. Yes.
and I get this season I also started watching because they ran Vanderpump and Valley back to back. My DVR recorded Watch What Happens Live on Tuesday nights afterwards. So I would get a lot of info from that show as well, because I'd watch it and I'd be like, oh, I've always heard about this person, and now here they are on the show. So I think at this point, you're looking at kind of, I'm looking at it as that's where I get my 30-minute fill of what's going on in Bravo world. I pretty much get from Watch What Happens Live, but I only watch that once a week. It's not like I'm watching it 5 days a week. I only watch it on the nights that Vanderpump and the Valley are on. So I want to transition to what we always transition into with you, and that is the documentary world, because you are queen of this. You watch all of them. You basically review all of them. You bring on the producers, the directors. So
sometimes the talent.
Sometimes the talent as well. There's only one that I've seen. I shouldn't say I've seen it. I
doubt it. I bet you have. I bet you watch some of the stuff that I'm about to say.
I don't think I have. But
don't you like sports docuseries?
Well, that's the one I'm going to get to. You know which one I'm going to bring up. I have not seen it. It's the 3-parter on Pete Rose. I've
watched it. I've interviewed the director.
Okay. So I have not seen it, so it sucks that I can't really give my thoughts on it, but I can give you thoughts of people that I know have seen it and what they thought. And there are 2 people in the sports radio industry that I follow, I'm aware of. One of them is a good friend of mine, and they literally had about as opposite of views on that documentary as you could get. One of them said, and I'm paraphrasing here, after watching the documentary on Pete Rose, absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
What?
And he seems like, it's a disgrace that they've kept him out. And then my other friend, the one that I actually do know, said, watched the same exact documentary as you, and I couldn't disagree more. Comes off as insufferable, a narcissist, not sorry for anything he did. Absolutely couldn't disagree with you more. And it was just
the first person. What does the first person do for a living?
He's a sports talk show host.
Oh, interesting.
Although I do think, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong here, I actually think he has a relationship with Pete, and he's done radio shows with him. So clearly he's going to defend him.
People say that he's quite charming. He's not my ball of wax, but he can be perceived as charming. I think he's a pathological liar.
Yeah.
I don't think he can even remember the lies. I think it's like a compulsive thing. He's really like getting up in age now, and there are a few people that kind of remember him and love him, and I think he's having a hard time with that.
I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding why drug addicts and steroid users have been, they say like, well, I mean, some of those guys have been kept out. Basically, the main guys, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, have been kept out of the Hall of Fame. They clearly have Hall of Fame numbers, but they've been kept out for years because people had just assumed they were steroid users. And people have said like, well, why not just create a wing in the Baseball Hall of Fame that says, look, there was an era during baseball when people used performance-enhancing drugs. This is the wing we're going to put those guys in. That doesn't sit well with me either.
It defeats the purpose, the whole thing of Hall of Fame, like famed people, meaning like people that one would look up to. Yeah, no, that's a doozy of a one. Interesting nonetheless. If you're looking for a really good, interesting one, especially this week because of all the track and field events, I highly recommend Sprint.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Simone Biles one.
I've watched that one, and I interviewed the director of that one too. The Sprint one I like a lot because they're all showboats. They've got fantastic personalities.
Yeah.
It's really compelling that they could make a docuseries about a sport that's literally 10 seconds, 20 seconds long.
And we only pay attention every 4 years to it.
But they are unbelievable athletes with the biggest personalities, but it's also interesting to see how the juxtaposition of the facilities and the resources of an American athlete versus a Jamaican athlete. And Jamaica, they are really the world leaders in sprinting.
Yeah.
I think for that reason, the best documentaries and reality shows for me are ones that really open me up to a world that I'm unfamiliar with. And even though I had a sister who was a sprinter, I mean, I feel like I know a lot about sports. There are so many nuances that I found really compelling. I interviewed a former Olympian, Sonia Richards Ross, and she walked me through the kind of day you have when you're an Olympic sprinter.
Yeah.
And how it's impossible to have a full-time job because it's down to how much water did I have? How much did I sleep? How much did I work out? How much did I eat? I think all those interesting things make this worth it. And I have to say that when you watch sprint and you see some of these races, you're going to feel so much more emotion because now you're going to know people's backstory. So that one's good. And also Receiver on Netflix is good because those
watching that,
athletes are showboats too. I think quarterback, you have a little people that are a little bit more cerebral, a little more, they're the kernels of the whole of the sport of football. And the wide receivers and the tight end and George Kittle, they're just showboats. Their personalities are so over the top and fun. And they're also all kind of different. Like Amon is a little bit more measured and contained. They're all really just interesting. So those are good. If you're looking for a true crime one, it's called Mastermind, Inside the Mind of a Killer on Hulu, is about Dr. Ann Burgess. She's the inspiration for Mindhunter. To listen to her story, a woman who really was the first woman who worked at Quantico, helping as a consultant with all these FBI and CIA agents about finding killers, just a ball buster. For example, she and her husband had to fly from Boston to Quantico all the time, so they both got their pilot's license. She would work and interview with all of these serial killers to get inside their mind and has worked on so many big cases. She's a total inspiration, an American hero, and very humble. That's a good one. Another good one is Sherry Papini. It's actually called The Perfect Wife, the Sherry Papini story, I believe. That's on Hulu too, and that woman is bananas crazy.
Yeah, we've seen that one got a lot of national attention when it happened because we were like, wait a second, a woman just claims that she was kidnapped by a Mexican couple and they bound and gagged her.
Two Mexican women.
Two Mexican women,
Yes.
Bound and gagged her, and then all of a sudden, wasn't she found on the side of the road or something like that?
What she did was she has this history of making up stories, convincing people like she's been abused. So there was a former boyfriend of hers that lived in Costa Mesa, California, so south of her. By
close to you.
Area. Literally the next town over. Yeah. So she convinces him that her husband is a horrible person. He's abusing her and she needs to be saved. So she pretends she went out on a run, like literally took her hair and wrapped it around like what looked like a Walkman and disappears. But she's with the boyfriend, but she's convincing him that he has to help her look all battered. So she wouldn't eat. So she lost a bunch of weight, cut her hair off. So it was like a pixie cut, had him brand her, and then take a hockey stick and a puck and hit pucks at her. So it would look like she was all bruised and battered. And then just shows up at a police department and says, I was dropped off on the side of the road. And then they find out, years later that it was all a farce. And of course she broke the law because all of these resources were put out to find her, which was all a lie. So what's interesting about this doc is we've always wondered, what is up with this husband? How did he not know he was married to somebody who is literally bonkers? And it's very interesting to hear a story. It even gets wilder. So that one was good.
So whatever happens to her, is she in trouble? Did she end up going to jail? I don't remember.
She went to prison and she's been
out,
released,
right?
but now she's dating a guy who also has some sort of sketchy situation where his wife passed away. And now people are wondering, was it something sinister?
Did he do it?
Yes. So lots of interesting stuff.
And didn't she, I could be wrong on this, but because I saw somebody put out a tweet about it and I could have been misled. God forbid there's misinformation on Twitter, but didn't she, since being released from prison, didn't she go out and get a boob job or something like that too?
Oh, I'm sure of it. And also she is trying to sell her story, her version of events. I mean, she probably convinced this guy who probably is a little bit cuckoo too, This was all made up. People got it totally wrong. I'm a victim. So I think that's why the husband went ahead and did this documentary, to get ahead of her, because she was being released from prison and he probably knew that she was trying to sell her story.
So what happened to the ex-boyfriend that she went back to?
So they did a lie detector. They never charged him. I think he was bamboozled, and I think he was utterly humiliated.
Was he in the doc?
No, he is like, please don't ever contact me. This is a humiliating period of my life. I had nothing to do with this.
Even though she was staying with him, but she was staying with him because he thought
they had enough information to be convinced that he should not be charged.
But he took her back because she said, "You got to help me. My husband beats me."
Yes.
And
but honestly,
that wasn't the case.
I mean, listen. How many times
you got to hit me with hockey pucks?
Have we in our life met somebody who tells us this fantastical story about like a horrible ex, and then you meet someone and they're like, "What are you talking about? That guy's totally normal," or "His wife's great," but like, "Oh, my ex is crazy." She just takes it to the worst level. And even the children apparently have made it seem to their dad like there's a little bit of a Munchausen syndrome or a situation too.
So we don't know her side in terms, not her side, her
and,
story, like why she did this.
And I don't want to hear it. I'm like, good night, Irene. You're crazy. Yeah.
I want to hear it just to see what she says, if she still sticks by it. Like, I wonder if she's like when somebody's going to give her an interview, and I got to believe that.
Well, they gave Anthony a documentary, and I was like, she needs to go off the grid too.
So I'm wondering if her story is going to double down and be like, no, he did this to me. That's why I ran back to my ex.
I'm sure.
Wow. But she is with, since she got released from prison, she is with somebody now.
She's out, and I think he's paying all of her bills. But I mean, there's there's significant information that really makes you realize that she's insane, and the husband is not telling a lie, because she was freaking out because she had a job, then she didn't have money, but she wanted a certain lifestyle. She had a history of doing really insane things.
Didn't she get released from prison in the year 2024, like earlier this year?
Yeah,
or was it
like not too long ago? Yeah.
So and she's already married to somebody else?
No. She's just with him.
Just her boyfriend. Okay.
But it just so happens that guy's wife died, and there are strange circumstances around it.
Is it one of these things where it was like love after lockup or whatever? Did they start talking while she was in prison?
I can't remember anymore that. But enough.
Isn't that a thing? Isn't that a show?
A lot of people, yes, a lot of people have said to me, "Wait, there's this whole other dynamic with who she's dating now. It's gonna blow the door wide open."
Oh, jeez. That one, I think I might watch, even though I've already read. I literally have read the people's recaps of that documentary, so I might not even. But I still want to at least kind of like see it for myself. But yeah, I remember that got a lot of traction when it came out. What, a couple months ago? It was like a couple months ago it came out.
Yeah. Well, and also the last one I was going to say too. Did you watch American Nightmare on Netflix? Because that's a thriller too. Remember the couple? They were on like 48 Hours Mystery, and they thought it was a gone girl situation.
That was the big one too, and I did not watch it, but I'm very well aware of it. Who were the two people involved in that?
Denise and her husband Aaron,
and everybody thought that they were lying, and until they were
lying. Yeah, and it was this insane man who kidnapped her, and just awful.
Yeah,
and he's in prison.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. What about the one that I'm just seeing recently? I don't even know if it's out yet. The Scott Peterson one.
No, there's something going on with this case.
Okay, yeah, because I saw somebody
everyone's really sick of Scott Peterson.
The interviewer was literally talking to him from prison, like that's part of this feature. Like he's behind the glass and he's picking up the phone, and it's like the first time we've heard from him in 20 years because he's been in prison.
I'm sure that people will be interested in that. For me, the case that really is upsetting me now, with so much information that we now know, and I may have already mentioned it to you before, is I really believe that the Menendez brothers should be let go. They've been in prison for about 26 years now. And I think we have so much information now that proves they were right when they said in the courtroom during their trial that their father had been sexually abusing them and they had been fearing for their life. And that was the reason that they killed their parents. Now, should someone kill someone else? No. But I think with all that we now know and the abuse that they were subjected to, I think 26 years is a significant amount of time. Like, they should be released.
Did they say it was self-defense, or did they say we just decided to do it?
No, it was self-defense. They thought that he was, because they were going to come forward and tell what he'd been doing, because the abuse was getting worse and worse and worse. So,
gosh, how old are they now? Now that I think about it,
I think they're
in their 50s or 60s.
Yeah, maybe like mid to late 50s.
Okay. Wow. Are there any other documentaries?
And it's been like exemplary prisoners. They're actually now in the same prison. They were not together for many, many years.
Oh, wow. Are there any other documentaries that you would?
Oh my God, there's.
I mean, obviously there's so many, but ones that tickle your fancy the most right now.
Well, right out this month, at the end of the month, the Untold series is back about untold stories of sports. I always really love that one.
Yeah, and I saw one of them is going to be about Hope Solo. One of them is going to be about. There's 3 that were announced in the Untold series. Only one of them is coming to my head right now, and it's one.
For me too. The Hope Solo one jumped out.
Gosh,
okay.
What was the other 2? It was I could actually pull it.
Another one I don't want to forget about this, because I kind of feel like you would enjoy it, is the Netflix documentary Dirty Pop, the Lou Pearlman story.
Yes.
Now, I interviewed the executive producers, one of which was actually in one of the boy bands that Lou Pearlman was in charge of, and he had sort of aged out, and they were going to do business together, and he was with Lou Pearlman 3 days before he was arrested in Bali.
Oh.
Okay. It's a doozy. Yeah. It's a doozy.
Untold Stories is on what? Netflix, right?
Netflix. It's by the Way brothers, McLean and Chapman.
Oh, okay. Here they are. The Murder of Steve McNair, Aaron McNair. That's the one that comes out on August 20th. Sign Stealer, which is about the Houston Astros stealing.
That's right.
And that's August 27th. And then the following week, September 3rd, is Hope Solo.
And they will be back with me. Team. The Way brothers will be back with me to talk about it. And I would really like to talk to Hope Solo too.
Yeah, she's quite the interesting personality, because she has been arrested a few times for domestic violence on her husband. Like, not even she was or maybe she claimed it, but then the police report says that no, she was the. It'd be interesting to talk to.
But that's what I like about that Untold series, is it truly is looking back at a piece of history and somebody who may have had a terrible reputation, and allowing us to look at it through a different lens. And I think the Manti Te'o 2 episodes are evidence of that. Like, I'm so happy for him and the success he's now having, and the way that people have given him grace and realized now that he was a victim of a con artist. It's been really, really great to see. And I'm glad that they did that story on him.
I was somebody that did a 180 on that story. I remember coming out at the time that story became public, and I'm like, this guy is the biggest idiot in the world. And this was at the beginning of the whole catfish era. And I just didn't understand how somebody could carry that on, carry a story like that, try and convince everybody, play a whole football season, telling everybody he lost his girlfriend and his grandmother at the beginning of the season. We know he lost his grandmother, but then to say he lost his girlfriend and kind of let the story continue, and then it break literally 2 weeks before the national championship game. And you can only imagine what he went through. And then you watch the doc and you're like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, because you see how moving from a sheltered family in Hawaii, when he's only around family, to move to Indiana in the cold with no resources or friendships around. And now you could be swayed by someone who truly was a predator. Yeah. And the worst part was they didn't feel bad about it. The fact that they got to interview them, and that they would be that just so unwilling to say sorry is just so gross.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Anyway, Kate, once again, always great to have you on.
I love
your documentary recommendations. I definitely want to check out the Sherry Papini one. What's the name of it again? What's the title?
It's called The Perfect Wife.
Yeah.
The mysterious.
She sure is perfect.
The mysterious disappearance of Sherry Papini. I also want to tell people, if you go to katecasey.substack.com, every Monday I put out a list of what to watch. And you get that. It's a great guide. And you can also get my archive list, go back weeks and weeks and weeks and see what I put out every week of what to watch. I also have a book club for nonfiction books, and I have episodes 6 times a week, including Saturday series episodes where I interview people who have just really cool personal stories, like the Ellen Vian I just had on.
Nice. And of course, you can hear you on the Reality Life podcast.
Reality Life with Kate Casey. Yes.
Kate Casey. Perfect.
Yeah.
Kate, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And we'll bring
Thank
you on
you.
again in probably 3 or 4 months, like we usually do.
Perfect.
Basically having you on quarterly is what
Yes.
we like to do. So
Sounds
again,
good.
Kate, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.